What if I told you there's a subtle psychological trick that can make someone confess they're obsessed with you without you saying a word? It's not about manipulation or begging for attention. Instead, it's about using reverse psychology to trigger deep emotional instincts. The key? Stop seeking validation, create mystery, and become less available. When you shift from "please notice me" to "I'm perfectly fine without you," you ignite the primal urge to chase. But there's a fine line. Done right, he'll be drawn to you. Done wrong, you risk pushing him away. In this guide, you'll discover powerful techniques to make him admit his obsession without ever asking. Get ready to change the way you approach attraction. What is reverse psychology, really? Reverse psychology isn't some mystical art reserved for master manipulators or a magic trick pulled out of a hat. It's rooted in simple, everyday human behavior, something we all experience without even noticing. At its core, reverse psychology is about creating a situation where someone feels compelled to do the opposite of what they're told or expected to do. It plays on a fundamental aspect of human nature, our resistance to being controlled. The harder you push someone in one direction, the stronger their instinct becomes to push back in the other. It's a reaction wired into us, a rebellion against losing our sense of autonomy. Think about it for a moment. When someone tells you exactly what you should do, whether it's a parent nagging you to clean your room or a friend insisting you try their favorite food, what's your first gut reaction? Often, it's to resist, to do the opposite, even if just to prove you're still in charge of your own choices. This isn't limited to stubborn teenagers or defiant kids, it's a universal trait. Adults feel it too. It's an instinct buried deep in how we process demands, requests, or even subtle suggestions. The more someone tries to box you in, the more you want to break free. The brilliance of reverse psychology lies in how you deliver the message. If you tell someone outright, "You need to do this," they might dig in their heels and refuse. But if you flip the script, if you frame it as though they don't need to do it or shouldn't bother, they suddenly feel an urge to prove the opposite. It's almost like they're challenging themselves or you without even realizing it. It's a psychological dance, a game of push and pull, where the subtlety of your actions outweighs any direct commands or confrontations. In relationships, this becomes an incredibly powerful tool. The more you act indifferent, the more you seem like you're not overly invested, the more the other person starts to question their own feelings. When you stop chasing after someone, they often start chasing you. It's counterintuitive, but it works because it taps into that deep-seated need for control and freedom. When someone feels like they're losing access to your time, attention, or emotional energy, it becomes irresistible to them. They want to reclaim it, to prove they still matter. And that's where the obsession begins to take root. The psychology behind the trick? This isn't just about playing hard to get. It's about understanding the deeper layers of human instincts that drive attraction. Human nature is wired for desire, and that desire skyrockets when something feels just out of reach. The more someone senses that a person or opportunity might slip away, the more urgent their feelings become. They start thinking about you more, wondering what you're doing, why you're not as available as before. Before long, they're caught in a spiral of curiosity and longing, obsessed with figuring out how they let you drift out of their grasp. Reverse psychology leverages this instinct beautifully. By creating emotional space, by stepping back and letting him wonder, it encourages him to discover his own feelings without you applying direct pressure. You're not asking, "Do you like me?" or "Are you obsessed with me?" Instead, you're setting the stage for him to realize it on his own. It's about shifting the dynamic so that instead of you seeking his validation, he starts seeking yours. When you stop pouring all your energy into chasing him, he begins to fill that void himself, drawn in by the mystery of your newfound independence. But there's more to it than just distance. Attraction isn't a straight line. It's a complex interplay of biology, psychology, and emotion. From a biological standpoint, attraction is a survival mechanism, rooted in our need to connect with someone who offers value, support, or enhancement to our lives. It's why we're drawn to certain traits, confidence, kindness, a strength, because they signal something primal about a person's worth. Reverse psychology taps into this by making you appear more valuable, more desirable, simply because you're not throwing yourself at him. The moment you stop being overly available, you raise your perceived value in his eyes. It's a natural human reaction. We want what we can't easily have. When something feels within reach, it loses its shine. It's too predictable, too safe. But when it's just beyond our grasp, it becomes a challenge, a prize worth pursuing. That's the psychological hook here. By acting less emotionally dependent, you create a sense of scarcity, and scarcity amplifies desire. He starts to see you as something he might lose, and that fear of loss ignites his instincts to chase. How attraction really works. Attraction isn't just about looks, charm, or chemistry. It's rooted in something far deeper, wired into every human brain. It's about the signals our minds pick up when we encounter someone we perceive as valuable or desirable. But here's the kicker. Attraction doesn't always follow a logical path. It thrives on subtle cues, emotional shifts, and unpredictability. When someone is too predictable, always there, always eager, it can dampen the spark. On the other hand, when there's an air of mystery, when someone isn't constantly laying their emotions bare, the desire to know more intensifies. This is where reverse psychology shines. By pulling back, you create that unpredictability. You're no longer the open book he can flip through at will. You're a puzzle he has to solve. Our brains are wired to crave the unknown. It's like an itch we can't help but scratch. When he can't pin you down, when he's not sure where he stands, his mind starts working overtime. He wonders what you're up to, why you're not texting as much, what's changed. That curiosity becomes a motivator, pushing him to pursue you in ways he might not have before. Another key driver of attraction is the balance of effort and reward. Psychological studies show that people value things they have to work for, whether it's a goal, a prize, or a relationship. When someone invests emotionally, mentally, or physically, their brain rewards them with satisfaction and a sense of accomplishment. So when you stop pouring constant energy into him, when you let him take the lead, it shifts how he perceives you. He starts to value the interaction more because he's putting in the effort. The harder he works for your attention, the more he treasures it. There's also the element of challenge. Humans are naturally drawn to obstacles, especially in relationships. A challenge taps into our problem-solving instincts, our need to conquer and succeed. When he sees you as a challenge because you're emotionally distant or fiercely independent, he feels compelled to overcome the barriers. It's less about simply winning your affection and more about proving to himself that he can. In that process, he becomes more invested, more obsessed, because the stakes feel higher. Putting reverse psychology into action. So how do you make this work? The key lies in subtlety. It's not about being cruel or manipulative. It's about shifting the dynamic naturally. It starts with stepping back from seeking his validation and focusing on your own contentment. The less you seem to need his presence, the more his mind starts to wonder why you're not fully invested. That curiosity becomes the spark that drives him closer. Begin by pulling back emotionally, but not in a harsh or dramatic way. This isn't about ghosting him or giving him the cold shoulder. It's about taking a step back from the constant need to please, to be available, to chase. Let the space between you grow naturally. Maybe you don't text as quickly as you used to, or you skip the usual flood of messages checking in. You're not cutting him off. You're just not leaning in as hard. In conversations, drop subtle hints of your independence. Casually mention, "I've been enjoying my own space lately," or "I'm just focusing on myself right now." These aren't declarations of disinterest. They're statements of self-sufficiency. You're showing him you're fine without his constant attention. And that independence is magnetic. It flips the script. Instead of you needing him to feel whole, he starts wondering if he needs you to feel complete. The psychological trick here is rooted in scarcity. The more he feels like he doesn't have full access to you, the more he wants it. It's human nature. Our minds fixate on what's uncertain, what's just out of reach. When you stop chasing his approval, he starts filling in the gaps himself. He begins to chase, to pursue, and with each step he takes towards you, his emotional investment deepens. Before long, he's caught up in the pursuit, obsessed with figuring out where he stands. Signs it's working. When reverse psychology starts to take hold, the signs are subtle but unmistakable. At first, he might not even realize what's happening, but his behavior will give him away. The first clue is an uptick in his attention. Suddenly, he's more present, texting more often, asking about your day, finding excuses to connect. It's not just casual anymore, it's deliberate, like he's trying to reclaim the space you've stepped back from. You might notice him getting a little anxious about your time apart. He'll ask where you've been, what you've been up to, not in a controlling way, but with a quiet urgency. It's a sign he's starting to feel the void you've created. He might even show subtle jealousy, little comments about other people in your life, a flicker of unease when someone else gets your attention. It's not dramatic, but it's there, a hint that he's uncomfortable with the idea of losing you. His effort will ramp up too. He'll start remembering small details, your favorite snack, a story you told weeks ago, and weave them into conversations. It's his way of showing he's paying attention, trying to bridge the emotional gap. Conversations might stretch longer, his responses growing more thoughtful, more open. He's seeking your validation now, fishing for compliments or reassurance, a clear shift from before. Body language is another giveaway. When you're together, he'll lean in more, his eyes lingering a little longer. He might fidget, touching his hair, adjusting his shirt, subconscious signs of nervousness and eagerness. These cues show he's emotionally hooked, drawn in by the tension you've created. He's not just interested anymore, he's invested, chasing you in a way that's hard to miss. The fine line, avoiding the pitfalls. Here's where caution comes in. Reverse psychology is powerful, but it's a delicate balance. Overdo it, and you risk pushing him away instead of pulling him closer. If you pull back too far, too fast, it can feel like rejection rather than mystery. He might think you're done with him entirely, that he's not worth your time. The goal is to create intrigue, not confusion or hurt. Timing is critical. Step back too long, and curiosity can turn into indifference. If he feels neglected rather than challenged, he might give up, assuming the chase isn't worth it. You want him intrigued, not insecure. And authenticity matters. If he senses you're playing a game, it could backfire, eroding trust. Reverse psychology works best when it feels natural, not forced. Don't let it become a crutch either. Emotional distance is a tool, not a lifestyle. Relationships need vulnerability, trust, and connection to grow. Use this trick to spark his interest, but know when to bring the warmth back. If you stay too guarded, you'll miss the chance for real intimacy. The goal isn't to keep him guessing forever. It's to draw him in so he confesses his obsession, paving the way for a deeper bond. Bringing it all together. Reverse psychology isn't magic, it's a window into how attraction works, rooted in our natural responses to desire, control, and challenge. By stepping back, you create space for him to chase, to question, to invest. The more you ease off, the more he's drawn in, obsessed with closing the gap. But balance is everything. Too much distance risks losing him, while the right mix of mystery and connection keeps him hooked. Every person is different, and attraction is complex. What works for one might not work for another. But understanding these principles gives you the confidence to navigate relationships with insight. You'll spot the signs of his growing obsession, the attention, the effort, the subtle shifts, and know when to lean in or pull back. It's not about control. It's about letting his feelings unfold naturally, guided by the power of suggestion. If this deep dive resonated with you, give it a thumbs up. It helps us reach more people curious about the psychology of relationships. Want more tips like this? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're here to unpack the art of connection, one video at a time. Check out our other content for strategies to build meaningful bonds and let us know your thoughts below. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.